Welcome to the School Sucks Project, a podcast, YouTube channel, and online community dedicated to personal growth and intellectual self-defense.
We promote learning alternatives, home education, critical thinking, peaceful parenting, organization and productivity, and better communication strategies.
Please remember to visit schoolsucksproject.com to get comprehensive show notes, relevant links,
or to just leave comments.
Follow us on Twitter at SchoolSucksShow. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, username School Sucks Podcast, and get involved in our Facebook group. Just search for School Sucks Project.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I am so excited to welcome back to School Sucks Podcast, Julia Tourianski. Hi, Julia.
Hi.
So, you are an artist, an activist, a YouTuber, a writer. Do you like the term YouTuber? Or is that sounds kind of pejorative?
I feel like I don't get enough views to be a YouTuber yet.
How do you describe yourself? Would you say, I'm Julia, I'm a blank?
Anti-state propagandist. I don't know. I do things that the things that I do have always one intention, and it's to disenfranchise people from assumed power structures, from assumed narratives, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very difficult to label oneself, and we'll talk about labels later in the show because I think they can be incredibly limiting. So let's not label me.
All right. I like that. I'm really happy that you are the first guest in a brand new theme. What we've been doing in 2016 is we do a theme every month. So in January, we did productivity. That's an important one. In February, we did a series called The Principles of Learning Anything. And in March, we're doing the creative pursuit. And it started for me as this frequent thought. It occurs more than I would like it to occur, where I wake up or I go to work and I say, shit, I think I'm out of ideas. And I'm trying to remedy that by having talks this month with people who have inspired me or who I've enjoyed working with or whose work I have admired in the past. And you are certainly one of those people, in addition to being one of my pals. So I'm happy to have you here. And I wanted to talk about, your past and your process and how you apply yourself to a certain type of work. So that's what we're going to do today. And ultimately, I think we will address that concern that I had about kind of feeling like there are some limitations going forward when it comes to doing some type of creative work.
Yeah, and I think it's important to look at other people's creative process in order to kind of wrap your head around your own, especially when you're feeling the way you've described your feeling.
Absolutely. So for people who are unfamiliar with you, what do you do and what have you done in the realm of, media arts or production or other types of creative pursuits?
So I've done several things. I cover events or occurrences that I think are important with my own twists. So I guess the thing I'm known most for in that realm is covering the Ross Ulbricht Silk Road trial. Mm-hmm. So I guess I could be interpreted as somewhat of a alternative reporter. Then I do art. So I make artistic videos. I'll write a script and then I'll recite it into the camera and I'll edit it and I'll make a artistic video, which also presents my view of the current world, my criticism of the current world, in a poetic way. So some people really are drawn to that. And we talked about my video last time I was on the show. We talked about the shift. So that would be probably the most artistic because it's one of my only videos that's composited out of clips. I also do just social reaction and commentary, political reaction and commentary in videos. And sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're quite serious. So I keep myself busy. It's always fun. It's always interesting. And it's nice to have those different facets of work because you can't always be inspired and feeling incredibly creative to create the more artistic work. And there isn't always something going on that you're incredibly interested in, enough to, bust to New York every weekend. So it's a good balance to have. And not everyone has that, and everyone is able to go into different directions at different points in their life. And I'm really glad that I am able to do that.
Absolutely. And you actually have an artistic background too. Like you went to school for it. You were going to be, yeah, go ahead.
I guess what I was gifted with was, visual art. So I'm quite a decent painter. My dad's a decent painter. My whole entire side of my father's family are good artistically in the visual sense. But I was never, I'm kind of cursed. So I always wanted to be a singer, but I have zero skill. I'm tone deaf. This is just never going to happen. So I guess I've always had the urge to perform, but I'm good at drawing and painting, which I like doing. But to be successful at drawing and painting, you have to love doing it. You have to do it all the time. And it's just not me. I just don't love it. I can't sit around painting all day. So I lack the motivation part of that, the motivation of love of the craft. And then I have this, a political streak. And because of my artistic background, I was able to combine that with my creative side. And I think that's lacking in this sphere. I think people are a little bit dry, or unless you're doing, Julie Borowski does a good job because she's funny. She can really merge humor and comedy with politics, and it really works for her. And I can do that to some extent, but I'm much better at creating art, even if it's political.
One of the questions, and you brought this up with what you just said, that I wanted to ask everybody that I interview for this series is, have you always wanted to do what you're doing? And I think that for a lot of people, especially for people who are my age or older, the answer is going to be no, because we never could have envisioned doing what we're actually doing. But in your case, I think I'll put the question to you like this. In your current work, what was it that actually made you start? What was the catalyst?
So I think generally people need three things to do their life work or their passion. They need, inherent gift. They also need motivation, and they need inspiration. And inspiration can come from a number of things, like emotion or life experience, interaction with other people. So for me, it all came together, I guess over 2 years ago now. And I had the experience. I had my art background, and I had my video background, because I was actually in one of the first viral videos ever on YouTube before you could monetize it or anything. I was in a video that was #1 in the US, #1 in Canada, and several European countries for a whole week. So I had
what was
that.
It?
It was a video based on the Half-Life universe, which is a video game, and I played just like this Russian girl ran around with a gun.
I've seen that. That's the video that you're talking about. It's, what was the name of it? Escape from City 17?
Escape from City 17. Yeah. So that was fun. I wasn't solely behind that creatively. It was the Purchase brothers who directed the video, but I was part of the creative process. I was part of the filming, part of the writing and compositing, and I even did some rotoscoping on it. And anyways, the whole process was super fun and creative, and I learned how to edit from being part of that, just being around that environment. So everything kind of came together for me at the same time, but the skill wasn't enough. I was brewing ideas. I had the script written for The Shift. I wanted to do video because I had been writing articles, but I didn't have the guts yet. And then I fell deeply in love. And then very shortly after, was incredibly heartbroken. And for me, that really, that was my inspiration. That was my motivation. That was my fuel. That's what got me going. And that's true for a lot of people, I think. I think a lot of creative minds, they channel some sort of tragedy, whether it's a death of a family member or an unrequited love, and they channel it and they create their work from that. Some people go to, there's that stereotype of the creatives being heroin addicts and alcoholics. And it's so incredibly true. Look at Edith Piaf, horrible heroin addict, and alcoholic. Look at Amy Winehouse. Look at Lana Del Rey. And then you can, so they had that struggle from their personal life and then medicating with all those things. And it kind of came together, making them incredibly maybe emotional beings. And because they also had a gift, they had a gift for something, they were able to turn that emotion into something beautiful, in my opinion. And you could probably argue that if they didn't have that life experience, that heartbreak, they weren't in love and devastated, they didn't have the problems with narcotics and alcohol, you could, I think, very convincingly argue that their work would not exist or be anywhere near as good.
It seems like there's a prerequisite of some kind of adversity in a lot of these cases. And one of the things that I wanted to do for people in the audience, I mean, everybody has their own challenges, everybody has their own struggles, but making maybe some of those lessons useful for more people. I think that maybe not everybody has this genius or this gift that we see in so many of these artists or so many of these tortured artists, but I think people have a lot of untapped creative potential that they just haven't been able to access for one reason or another. I mean, we don't really live from, K through 12 schooling or the work world in environments that allow a lot of people opportunities to access it. Now, granted, there's plenty of time in life outside of doing those things. There's plenty of kids who are going through the public school system that are plenty artistic, and there's plenty of people who work 9-to-5 jobs who have plenty of time for their own artistic pursuits. But I wanted to just see if we could examine that question a little bit more, that connection between adversity and creativity. And you mentioned like some kind of, emotional challenge. But what do you think it is about those types of experience that lead to this kind of inspired or genius work in some of the people maybe that you named, or you could think of some others as well?
I think it's about feeling something in an insanely intense way. I think for some people, they hibernate instead. They get depressed and they do nothing. I think for those with a creative streak, it's incredibly self-medicating to channel that. I think more than ever, we have leisure time in the history of the world. And those who have a natural gift for something, if they have a perfect life, if they have no struggle, if they have no death, if they have no heartbreak, what are they gonna write about? What are they gonna reference? Where's the fuel? What's gonna motivate them? And I do know some artists that there's different approaches, right? I do know some artists that are just very meticulous about their craft. They're very thoughtful and they just work at it a lot. But that creates a certain kind of work that's, I think, very inherently different from what we're talking about. Not worse, not better, different. And probably it has an advantage because it could be steady and it could be continuously improved upon and honed. Whereas people like that I've mentioned are very self-destructive and it's not sustainable. It usually ends bad, but they're also much more famous or recognized than the people who just work really hard at it for a long time and have a steady release and output of their creativity.
Yeah, I think just a couple of people who come to mind, somebody like Janis Joplin or Jimi Hendrix or Heath Ledger, and you look at their short lives and the way they lived and, how they treated themselves physically and mentally, and you say, or I say anyway, that doesn't really seem like somebody who really ever got stuck in a kind of comfort zone. And that seems like a real death for creativity or inspired, productive work generally. But obviously, I want to stress for people that there's probably other ways to break out of it besides, putting yourself in such dire straits or difficult situations. And this was a question I wanted to ask you because I know you get out a lot. You go a lot of places, you go to conventions, you see different things. You've traveled the world. You're not even originally from where you live now. You're from pretty much the other side of the world. Have those kinds of experiences, maybe just think about like your travel schedule over the last couple of years. Do you find that can be an energizing or inspiring thing? If you think about coming back and then returning to the work you do, are you in a different frame of mind after those kinds of experiences?
I know for a lot of people, their location is very inspiring. For me, that's not the case, but what travel does for me, it exposes me to individuals that inspire me. I'm very inspired by relationships. They don't have to be romantic. And I need muses. That's the simplest way to put it. I need muses. And my favorite writings that I've done I don't even remember writing them. I'm incredibly inspired by an individual and something just goes off in me. And then all of a sudden there's a script in front of me that I turn into a video, an article, or a piece of work. And it's like a blackout. Mm-hmm. And travel enables me to experience things with new people or people that have inspired me. So it's not the actual travel in and of itself. It's who you're around when you're doing it, for me personally.
So you're inspired by people people you interact with. Mm-hmm. That was definitely one of my questions. Others too, people you don't know. We've touched on a few of them, and I want to get more into that in a bit, because what inspires people is definitely something that I'm interested in learning more about through these conversations. But I wanted to talk a little bit about your training, your skill development process, especially what most people have seen you do is what you do on YouTube. And I think that there's a real block there has been for me in envisioning something that I want to make happen, but the vision often just kind of withers away because the distance from where I am to what I want to achieve is just too great, and there's too many obstacles as far as unattained skills along the way, that there's a lot of ideas that I've had that I just wind up abandoning. So when people, see what you do, when that shows up on YouTube, I wanted to talk a little bit about the process that happens before that. Like the seed of an idea, how it becomes something that you think can turn into an entertaining or an enlightening presentation for people, and how that is executed from start to finish.
Yeah, so as I said, my most inspired ideas kind of just appear. I just type it and it's done. And then it's a matter of just making the video. But you do have to, if you sit on it for too long, it's not always productive. Procrastination can be really good because it lets you reassess your idea and really make sure that you believe what you're going to say. And I have done that. I have sat on a project for over a year. I have had the script written and I've sat on it for over a year to make sure that what I'm saying, I mean. And that's when it really hurts me when people think that it's off the cuff or, I didn't think it through, when in fact I've thought it through for over a year. Then so that's usually the more political philosophical work. And I think people should do that with that kind of work. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to let it sit. With the creative stuff, you really have to grab it. Like, if there's a creative idea that swoops in and you have it and you get invigorized and energized to do it, you kind of have to do it right there and then in that moment, or else your motivation will die and that inspiration won't be part of your work anymore. It'll be not as good.
Yeah, there's this thing too about critiquing your own work. Like, I'll think of something and I'll start to do it, and then I'll think about it some more and I'll say, no, that sucks. But when I first started to think about it, I was like, this is probably the best idea I've ever had. And I've actually learned, and a couple of things that I brought all the way to the end and put out for people to see, it did go through that process of self-critique where I was like, no, you know what? This isn't actually really that good, or I'm cheating here, or this whole like video that I want to make is based on a logical fallacy and I probably shouldn't put it out. But then the response was so positive that it actually has encouraged me to take more chances and to not listen to that critical voice as much. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the thing where when you have that idea and you first encounter it, imagine other people in that position encountering it for the first time. Like when I first encountered it, I said, this is phenomenal. This is wonderful. I'm so pleased that I thought about this. Well, maybe there's a whole bunch of other people who would feel that way when they see it for the first time. They're not going to sit there and cycle through it and think about it, 24 times like I am. So I think there is real value in when you have that idea that motivates you and inspires you, that you should jump on it. If you have the time and the resources, or hopefully you can make the time and the resources right away, because that has produced, by and large, good results for me.
Yeah, and I think people like us are very hard on themselves, and it's important to keep in mind that you are allowed to change your mind, and you are allowed to realize that you were wrong, and you're allowed to take down work that you no longer believe in, or keep it up as as something to reference from your past. Mm-hmm. You should be going through an evolution of opinion, and the things that I believed in a year ago have not done a 180 or anything, but they have matured and become more nuanced.